In this video, we will be using the new Gemini 2.5 Pro model in Cursor, and we will be using it to build a real feature in my app just by prompting it. And we'll be able to see how well it holds up against some of the other models like Claude 3.7 Sonnet. My name is Moritz. I've built an app that now does 20K per month without knowing how to code. I used to work in product management, and now I build software applications full time. I'll be structuring this video into 3 sections. We're going to start with a bit of a planning phase for the new feature itself, and we will be doing that in V0. Then we're going to head into the actual build inside of Cursor. So we will build out the application just by talking to the AI. And finally, because this is an AI feature, I'll be spending some time focusing on the prompt engineering and just like really optimizing the prompts to make this feature really good. Let's get into it. Just real quick before we get into the video, I want to let you know about the community that I started called the Prompt Warrior community. In this community, I help people that may not have a lot of experience developing software applications to help them get started by learning how to use AI to build software. So as you can see, we have a classroom here with a bunch of courses for ideation, building with AI, and marketing. And we have weekly office hours as well, where you can come in and ask questions. If you want to join, I'll put a link down below. All right, now back to the video. Okay, then let's start with the planning of the feature. As I said, I like to use V0 for this one. You can probably use Bolt or Lovable or any other of these AI builders for this, but I like to use V0 whenever I'm focusing more on the design aspect, and this is what I want to do here. And for context, the idea is basically that CopyCoder is an app that helps you build your applications faster. And before you actually start building, you want to usually do a bit of a brainstorming session with AI to find out your product requirements doc. And usually I just do that in like a separate Claude or ChatGPT window, but it would be nice to have a optimized prompt for that. And I want to attempt to basically build that feature into CopyCoder. So it will be a separate page where users can just brainstorm with the AI. And at the end of it, they will get a PRD. Okay, so let's type those requirements into V0. I want to build a feature in my app that's a PRD generator. I want to have a AI chat section on the left. On the right, I want to have a panel with 5 PRD categories, which should be marked off as the chat progresses. There should then also be a button to download the PRD document. And then I'll say just focus on the design for now. Create a simple prototype. It doesn't have to be fully functional. Okay, let's try this. Okay, awesome. This already looks pretty much exactly like I wanted. There's this panel here where I can chat with an AI assistant. It will have a conversation with me. Hello, I'll help you create a PRD. Let's discuss your product requirements. And then I can chat with it here. And as I'm chatting, the PRD progress on the right should automatically be marking off which sections of the PRD I have now talked about and basically have provided context on. And then below you can see there's a download PRD. Cool. Okay, so the only thing I think is that this part can be made a bit nicer and make it look a bit richer. Right now it looks very simple, so I'll just do that follow up here and make the PRD progress section look a bit nicer. It looks a bit too empty now. All right, that does look a lot better. Although I'm not sure if I really want to have it as a progress with a percentage complete, but I do like how it's styled this and just added a bit more text and added like a card or like a box around this. Let's test this AI image generator. And obviously this is not actually hooked up to the AI. I think it's just, yeah, this is just like a mock-up answer. Continue. Okay, so pretty cool. It's not marking these as complete as the chat conversation goes on. So let's make the adjustment that we actually don't have a progress bar here because that's not quite what I wanted. That's good, but I don't want a progress bar. The user should be able to create the PRD even if not all section context is provided and discussed. Okay, there we go. This looks better. 0 of 5 discussed, and it says you can download your PRD at any time. Sections will be included as they're discussed. And yeah, this will be marked off. You have your chat here. This looks awesome. So the planning phase is, I think, pretty much done for me now. The cool thing is also that I can now deploy this and basically get a URL that I can share with my team and just get their input on what they think about this mockup and whether they think that I should add any changes there. But yeah, once we're agreed on this design here, what I can then do is I will be heading here into the code and I'll be copying that code to then take it over into Cursor. Okay, now we're in Cursor and now we're actually going to start building this into the main application as a real feature. So you'll see here, I'm inside of the copycoder project and I'm on the main branch here. So the first thing I want to do is just create a separate branch so that I can build this feature and later on merge it into the main branch once it's ready. So to do that, I'll just do git switch C and give this branch a name. So PRD generator demo. Okay, and now we're all set. Before I actually go here into the AI, just make sure that in your settings that you have Gemini activated. So there's right now this 2.5 Pro experimental model, which is the one that we're going to be using. And then there's also a 2.5 Pro Max version, which is even more powerful, but it actually costs something per request. So let's get started with that. So the first thing we'll want to do is create a new page. Create a new page in the sidebar called PRD generator. It should be just below the dashboard. Page can be empty now. It should have the same style as the other pages in this project. Make sure to scan the project before. So I just tell that to the agent to just make sure that it actually gathers all of the context of the project. You don't need to do any code-based tagging now anymore with the agent. All you need to do is sometimes you need to just say it. Usually it does it automatically. So the cool thing about Gemini is that it has a huge context window. So in all of the tasks where it's scanning a big code base or kind of trying to debug something where it needs to read a big code base, that's where it really excels at. Okay, so it's made the changes to the sidebar and it should actually also create the page, which it didn't. Also create the empty page. Cool, it created the page. It's empty, and let's run this application to just check it out. Okay, here we go. So we have this new PRD generator page. If I click on it, as expected, it's empty. Cool. So now let's go back into Cursor, and what we want to do is we want to implement the design from V0 into this, but keep the styling of the original app, right? So help me implement this design onto this page, keep the styling of the current app, just implement the and functionality. And then I will paste the code from V0 below. And okay, let's go. Okay, so it had some linter errors here, but it's now attempting to fix it by itself. So it realized that it's missing a checkbox component. And it's asking me how to proceed with that. Yes, install the checkbox component. So it does often, actually all of the models get the ShadCN installation commands wrong. So I'll just type the correct one here. I've gone through this error a few times, so I kind of know by now. Well, it should be fine now. We installed it manually. So let's accept it and let's check it out. Okay, I guess the avatar component is also missing, so we might want to install that too. Okay, so we can see that it added it here, but it doesn't look quite right. Something with the layout, let's just tell it that. Looks like you added the code into the page, but the layout is not quite right. Fix the layout. It's still not right. Check how the page is implemented in dashboard and mirror same approach. Okay, yes, that looks a lot better. So this part looks really awesome. Let's also quickly test it. Image gen. So this is all just dummy AI responses for now. I just want to test what happens when I go all the way to the bottom. Okay, so the scroll does happen here. So that's good. And we just need to remove the scroll in the background. That works. Now remove the scroll in the background. So what's cool is that I understood exactly what I wanted. So to prevent the background scroll, I'll add the overflow hidden. Whatever it's doing, it just really understood what I said here. And that's really cool just from this simple sentence. And yeah, it did do the right job. Okay, so now what I want to happen is, let's do another. So you can see I'm typing a message, but it's actually not scrolling to the bottom. Yeah, so we're going to want to fix that UI issue here. When I type a message in the chat, it should auto scroll to the bottom. Also, there should be a loading for the AI message. All right, done. Let's test it out. There we go. So we have the loading. Now let's see what happens if we go all the way to the bottom. Actually, there's now something new popped up that it's not focusing in the input. So I'll fix that first. After I type a message, the input should stay focused so that I can just continue typing without having to click into the input again. Okay. It's super fast. I love this. No, didn't work though. Nope, still didn't work. Try a different, more robust approach. Okay, let's try now. Okay, so I tried 3 times on this, what to me seems like a relatively simple task. So what I will do now is I will first try switching into Sonnet to see if it can do that. No, still didn't work. Try again, another approach. Okay, so what did it do here? I removed the should refocus input state, add an input key. When a message is sent, I increment the input key, which forces the input component to completely unmount and remount. This does not seem like a very good approach to me. Well, let's test it out if it works. No, still doesn't work. Okay, so Claude 3.7 Sonnet also didn't get it to work. Let's try Gemini 2.5 Pro Max. Okay, I'm trying. You find the actual problem here and fix it. So as I mentioned, this is actually the model that will cost 5 cents per request. And so it will cost us a bit to use this, but you know, if it works, that's totally fine. And it's not too expensive. Okay. Yes, there we go. Now it worked. So it's refocusing, I guess, at exactly the right moment. So let's try to go all the way to the bottom. What happens if it, yeah, and the scroll feature is now also there, which is what we implemented before. Scroll works. Yes, it does. It could be a bit smoother, but let's leave it for now. Okay, so apparently switching into Gemini 2.5 Pro did indeed make a difference. Let's accept this. And to continue, I think we can switch back into the Pro experimental model again. Okay, now that we have the UI side of things down, what I want to implement first is that this chat is actually hooked up to a real AI. So we're going to do that now. Okay, I want to hook up the PRD generator chat to a real AI now. Check out how the other API endpoints in this app are made and use the same approach. Okay, it did the analysis and it says I will now create the API route. So it's going to be creating a new folder here. There we go, PRD chat, import the necessary modules, initialize Anthropic client, blah, blah, blah. And it creates a initial system prompt for us. Cool. And then use Anthropic stream to convert SDK's response. Okay, so I'm guessing it already opted for the stream API, which basically means the response will come back as a stream. So we can kind of stream it out instead of just pushing it out as a like one text block, which is nice. Let's see if this works. Okay, so I'm guessing because of the streaming behavior, it's now trying to install some Cell AI SDK package. Let's try it out. Okay, the package was not installed. Then yeah, let's try it out. The legacy peer dependencies also didn't work. Still failing. This usually points to a more complex issue within your package JSON. In the meantime, I can fix the explicit type any error. However, the error related to not finding the AI React module will persist. Okay, well, I will just tell it to, why don't we try the simpler approach without the streaming API? Okay, done. Let's test it out. Image generator app. Error. It says unauthorized invalid API key. Error says unauthorized API key. Are you sure you're using the same approach as in image analysis? So that's another API route that we have set up. Yes, there we go. We have the AI hooked up. This is definitely a AI response. Okay, the AI responses are now working, which is great. One little UI thing I do want to fix is that this just is very hard to read. So I think like it's not doing the spacing out properly. So let's fix that. Okay, it works now. One small UI issue I have. Okay, so seems like it's just a one line fix. And yeah, there we go. So now it looks a lot better. Let's continue answering the AI just to get a feel for what's happening. You tell me what features would be good. Okay, smooth scroll works as well. And nice. Okay, so the AI chat works. This is awesome. Let's commit this. Now, I do want to add another small feature. Add a small restart chat button to refresh the chat. Okay, here's the restart chat. Testimonials. Let's see what happens when I restart. Good. Okay, so it refreshes. Okay, so the two things left to build are how these PRD sections get ticked off. I'm guessing we will need a separate API for that. And then also implementing the download PRD button. Okay, so let's implement the PRD section. For that, I'll switch into the ask mode because I want to explore some options first. And let's just make sure to add everything into the context. I want to implement the PRD sections functionality. What would you recommend? Okay, here are a few approaches. Keyword regex maxing simple. No, definitely not what we want. AI-driven section identification, backend modification, how it works, modify the backend API route. So basically this API route that we have set up, update the prompt center to explicitly ask it to identify which PRD sections its current response addresses. The API should then parse this information. Okay, so this one seems quite reasonable. It's basically saying like you can send your requests through the normal API, like where the conversation is happening. And when the conversation returns, it should just return some extra information about whether these sections have been covered. And based on that information, it can then, mark these as covered. And that extra information that it returns would be hidden to the user. And the third approach here is separate AI analysis call. More complex how it works. Keep the chat API as is. After receiving a response, make a second separate API call. Yeah, that makes sense. So the benefits here are that it decouples the current chat flow from the section analysis, which I like. The cons is that it adds some latency, because you're like chatting here, and then once the chat returns, it's sending off another request to the AI to basically understand whether this section has been covered. So there might be some latency there. So the AI recommends approach 2, and I think it makes sense. But I do want to try this third approach, because I think that if we actually go back later and implement the streaming approach of the messages, it will be better to have this third approach. That's my assumption. I'm not sure. And so I would want to implement this third approach first, just to see how bad this latency actually is and whether that's something that's just really minor. Then we can keep this approach. If not, then I would switch to the other approach. Okay, so let's implement approach 3. Like to implement third approach. Make sure when you set up the new API that you mirror how we have done it so far. Switch back into agent mode. Let's go. Okay, created a new API here, and then it will now update the function in the page. Okay. The summary of what it did here. Okay, let's test it out. Oops. Let's switch straight into the max model here just to get this fixed. Fix this error. Okay. We probably didn't need the max model for that. Seems to have been something very small, but let's see. Let's try again. Image. Okay. So it worked. This just got completed. Okay, what's your target audience? Make some suggestions. Okay, so it did now also complete the key features based on this, which I think is not quite right. So we might have to debug this a bit. Let's go the first one. Okay, and now it ticked off this. Yeah, we probably need to modify the prompt a bit slightly to make this work better. Okay, as I said, the only thing to make this work even better, I think, is going to be optimizing the prompts, which we'll do in the end. And the main functionality that is now still missing is to download the actual PRD. So let's implement that. Okay, now let's implement the PRD download functionality. When I press the download button, it should download a PRD using the context from our chat only for sections that weren't covered. Make good assumptions based on the context. Output format should be a markdown file. Okay, let's go. Okay, so this will create a new API endpoint, and it will update this handle download function in the front end. Okay, so it has updated the front end component, and it has created a new backend API route, which is called PRD download. Okay, let's test this out. Image generator. So let's fill this with some context so that we can actually see if the downloaded PRD works. I'll guide you through. Let's begin with the problem statement. What specific problem you decide? Okay, problem statement needs custom images for various purposes, but lack the skills. Yep, sounds good. An overview, target audience. Okay, sounds good. Okay, nice. So we've built a bit of a context boundary here. Now let's test out this button. Okay, generating. Okay, there's one error here. Failed to generate PRD content. I'm getting this error when I click the download. Okay, let's try testing this again. Quick SEO tool, a calculator, have purposes of SEO. Okay, let's just use that. And now looks much better. Yes, something downloaded and now it looks like it worked. Let me open up this file. And you can see here the PRD file has been generated. Let's just see if the content matches. SEO calculator app. Zoom in a bit here. SEO calculator app. Cool. And it has these sections. And for the sections that we did not talk about, I actually specified that in the prompt that it should make good assumptions based on the context. Okay, awesome. So we have all of the functionality in this app working now. And now what's left to do is that we need to optimize the prompt a bit just make the user experience of this feature a little bit better. Okay, when I do prompt engineering, I like to start here in console.anthropic.com. And here you'll see a couple of options. It says write a prompt from scratch, generate a prompt, or improve an existing prompt. And these two are really useful. So for this case, since we already have prompts, I'll use improve an existing prompt. And then I'll go into my code here and just go find my prompts. So this is the first API that we had here, the PRD chat, which is the prompt for actually guiding how the chat conversation should be going. So I'll copy over this prompt, paste it here, and I'll just read through this prompt and see what it says. So you're an expert PRD assistant. Your goal is to guide the user through the process of creating, engage in natural conversation based on a user's responses, identify which PRD section their input relates to. Okay, so down here, you can then type in what you want this prompt to improve on. And I think one of the main things I want is that the AI should make more suggestions instead of trying to get the information from the user. The AI should always assume the user is lazy and help out the user as much as possible. So that's one of the things that from my experience of chatting here seemed like that could make the experience a bit better. Now we can improve this prompt, and it kind of goes through this step of improving this prompt. And then once we have the final result, we can modify it slightly manually. Okay, so here's the result. You're an expert PRD assistant. Here's the user's initial input. So we might have to edit that part out because we actually don't have a variable in the actual thing. But before responding to the user, analyze their input and plan your response. Wrap your analysis in analysis tags. Okay, I don't like this too much. So what I'll do is I will try this other mode to just generate a prompt and basically just add in this again. The problem is with the variable that it always it basically does this long thinking process based on the variable. And since this is a conversation, I don't want to have the variable in there. And then I'll add my points I mentioned earlier. The AI should always lean towards making a lot of suggestions. Don't overwhelm the user by asking too many detailed questions. Let's try this. Okay, so this does look a lot better. I'll copy this part over. Okay, and then let's test out if it actually improved the conversation experience on my writing tool. Okay, so this is weird, kind of. It says number 1, acknowledgement. PRD contribution is gives us starting point. Okay, so I don't like how it now actually listed these out in bullet points. So I will modify that. This was the problem actually. When responding, structure your output. So we'll just remove this entire section here. And okay, let's also remove the example interaction. We don't need that either. So let's try this again. App for finding restaurants. Here's some possible issues. Difficulty. I like how it's suggesting things now. And then it asks me which of these resonates with you, or is there something missing? That's good. So I can basically say, yeah, the first one is good. Problem statement draft. Many people struggle. Sounds good. Now let's enhance the statement. So I think one of the problems here is that it's kind of trying to dig too deep into that. So I'll add that. Don't linger too much on a section of the PRD. Okay, so I like how it's suggesting a bunch of stuff now, so that's good. All good, except for 7. Cool, so now it's kind of summarized the key features, and then it went into success metrics. Okay, now let's see if the download is still working well. Okay, and it lists all of the different, like a more comprehensive PRD doc. Okay, it also says things like, while specific user groups were not discussed in the conversation, based on the problem statement and features, the target audience likely includes. Yeah. Okay, so I think the chat behavior is now pretty good. The PRD section prompt seems fine too. And the download, let's have a look at that. You're an AI that is highly experienced. Be given conversation history. Okay, so it says, please structure the PRD using standard sections and ensure the output is clean. Include the following sections, and it will include those 5 sections that we have there on the page. Actually, I think this prompt here is pretty good. We don't need to optimize this. So the main thing was actually just making the chat prompt better, and the other prompts seem fine. So yeah, that's how kind of the prompt engineering process works. It's usually just like getting the initial prompt from here. If it's good, use it. If not, then just use something that you created yourself. And then it's a lot about testing. So it's just, in this case, testing whether the chat experience is good. And if there are things you noticed, if you've noticed patterns in the responses, you just want to, guide the prompt in a way that the assistant doesn't do that anymore. And so it's a lot about testing and seeing how it feels. Okay, cool. So now that we have done the prompt engineering part, this feature is ready. And all we actually need to do now is just do like a double check in the branch if everything is good. And then we can create a pull request of this branch and merge it into the main and then deploy it into the live version. And I will be doing that soon. I want to just, go over it a bit more in the next few days or so and maybe add a few more small features before I actually put this live. And then you guys will be able to see this live in CopyCoder once it is. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you a bit of an insight into the development process and how to actually create a real feature using these models. I think the key summary and conclusion is this model is extremely powerful. So I do feel like it is performing better than the other models I've used in the past. There are less bugs and less kind of loops that it gets stuck in, but it's of course not perfect yet. And once it does get stuck, you can just always switch around between the different models, and usually one of the models will fix it. And so it's cool that we have so many options now and we can just switch around between them. So yeah, try it out. Thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.